Boom, boom, boom. After those seniors' soul source light clusters almost disappeared, all the light clusters also merged into Xiao Yan's body, and the small space that was originally isolated by the man in black also trembled violently. Bang! The other dimension began to slowly shatter. Xiao Yan has long since woken up and quit the cultivation state. All the energy of the soul source he absorbed before is stored in the soul realm, because the Golden Dragon King and Xiao Yan just said Xiao Yan himself is also clear that it takes a lot of time to absorb the source of the soul to improve the strength of the soul. If you can go to Yu's house to find a safe place to make plans, otherwise the soul will be severely damaged, and the loss will be more than the loss. Immediately, it is also to absorb the soul source and store it in the soul realm to make plans. Seeing the immediate crisis resolved, Xiao Yan couldn't help but take a deep breath. It seems that this time I went to Yu's house to deal with things, and went to retreat well, devoured the origin of my soul, and practiced some fighting skills. Otherwise, in this continent where the strong are like clouds, it's impossible to walk at all. No wonder he thought so. After all, the enemies Xiao Yan encountered these times were too powerful, and there were very few ways to deal with them. With a plan, he also stepped forward to use the soul power to awaken the two girls. Qing Yuan was obviously trying his best to exhaust his fighting qi. He couldn't wake up in a short time, and he was still in a coma. With the help of Xiao Yan, he slowly woke up. Just woke up and saw a big hole in the distance, and hurriedly asked Xiao Yan, "That man in black should be the murderer who killed the Mu family in our Qingqing recently. But what about the monster behind him? How did you solve it?" "What?" In the face of Yueru's many problems, Xiao Yan also suffered from a headache. He couldn't say that he killed himself, so he could only prevaricate and say, "I don't know, just when you passed out, that monster's body twitched for a while and then froze. It exploded, but it was indeed dead." Yu naturally wouldn't believe Xiao Yan's nonsense, but after the immediate crisis was lifted, he couldn't care less about these doubts, and the top priority was to save his father. With a sound of bang, the original small space was instantly shattered, and the scene of people coming and going on the street was restored. Yueru walked in the front and led the way. Xiao Yan followed behind with Qing Yuan in his arms. Strangely, Xiao Yan, when I was holding Qing Yuan, I felt that the fighting spirit and even the strength of my soul and my body were recovering very quickly. Xiao Yi was also very reluctant to go back to Najing, so she changed it a little and wanted to become the little girl appeared to follow Xiao Yan. But she went back unwillingly under Xiao Yan's warning, with an unhappy expression on her face. Along the way, even if she had just experienced a life-or-death moment, Yueru seemed to lead the way calmly, because she also knew that her father's time was running out. Those who disagree will take the opportunity. The consequences are unimaginable. Before arriving at a street in the Yu family mansion, Xiao Yan and Yueru also made a plan. After entering the courtyard, they would act separately. Yueru took Qing Yuan to the lounge to rest, and then came over to meet Xiao Yan. Yin went directly to the destination, and then slowly walked towards the huge palace not far away. On the way, Yueru told Xiao Yan that their Yu family is not peaceful now. In other words, there are some differences in the Yu family. Only a few cronies know about her father's severe injury, so the treatment is also to be done in the dark. Approaching the extremely majestic mansion, Xiao Yan was surprised to see that there were many people crowded at the door, and these people were all dressed in the robes of alchemists, with a few strands on their chests. The dazzling silver ripples proudly displayed their identity and rank. "These are the juniors of our family, and you are of course not worth mentioning." Yueru also saw a pharmacist at the door and said, "On the streets where people come and go, all passers-by who pass by will turn their envious and awe-inspiring eyes to the group of alchemists who whisper to each other. In their hearts, pharmacists are a kind of noble, a profession like an aristocrat. Follow me." Yu took Xiao Yin and the others into the Yu family compound from a small path. Xiao Yin also knew that Yu was obviously doing this to avoid the clan disagreement about which people arranged in the Yu family compound. "Miss, you're back." Just after entering the gate, a pretty maid hurriedly walked out of the side, and then said a few words to Yu in a soft voice. Yu took Qing Yuan and separated from Xiao Yin, and the maid walked away. Is to lead the way ahead. Following behind the maid in a hurry, Xiao Yan's eyes swept across this luxurious mansion. The towering and magnificent buildings made him nod slightly in secret. Leaving aside other things, this Yu family is indeed worthy of Qingqing. One of the three major families, such wealth is definitely beyond the reach of ordinary people. Walking on the path made of cyan gravel, Xiao Yan's eyes suddenly narrowed slightly. In his sense, since he entered the depths of the Yu family, his soul sensed a mysterious and powerful aura, hidden in every corner. He raised his head inadvertently and glanced casually over an eaves where some dark shadows, hidden in the darkness, were painted black, covering the sharp arrow tips reflected by the sun, slowly moving. Moving in the mansion, any slight disturbance will make them deliver the attack in an instant. The defense is indeed very strict. Xiao Yin frowned slightly. Novel.com shook his head helplessly and looked up at a luxurious hall that appeared at the end of the trail. There was a faint sight of a person standing among them. "Father." Just as Yu took Qing Yuan to rest, she hurriedly ran over to meet Xiao Yin and greeted the maid to go down. Yu was left in a quaint room, Xiao Yin and a man whom Yu called Father, middle-aged man. Are you back?" The middle-aged man's loving voice sounded. "Well, Father, I brought back someone who can heal you this time." Yu pushed Xiao Yin and said. Xiao Yin could see that this girl, Yu, was very interested in her father. My pain won't get better for a while, so I don't have to work so hard." The middle-aged man shied away, but he was very relieved because his daughter kept coming to him to heal people. Although it was all unsuccessful, the heart was felt. "This little friend, the old man Yu, since he came to my Yu's house, please ask the little friend to show me." The middle-aged Yu looked at Xiao Yin, who was brought back by his daughter, and looked carefully, but found that the young man in front of him doesn't seem to be that simple. Even with his own strength, he doesn't seem to be able to see through it. Xiao Yin looked at the middle-aged man, who was a little yellowish in front of his eyes, and was not very good. He murmured to himself, 5-star Dodi? He really deserves to be the head of the family. Then he stepped forward, and Xiao Yi also summoned him instantly. Get ready to see what Yu said about the incurable pain of non-fire spirits. At the moment when the fire elf Xiao Yi was summoned, the temperature in the originally mild room instantly increased a lot, and Yu's originally bland eyes suddenly opened, and she lost her voice. "It's actually a fire elf?" Yu's exclaimed voice immediately turned to look at the milky white, terrifying high-temperature flames in front of her, and when she looked at her daughter Yueru, a trace of relief appeared. "When I went to the Warcraft Mountains to hunt monsters, I was accidentally injured by the 9 nether fire on the body of a 9 nether sparrow that was comparable to the level of the 6-star Dodi. Inextinguishable, I have used many methods and can erase the traces of flames, and the flames will devour my vitality. Today I have no time, even if I read many ancient books to find it. A glimmer of hope. It is rumored that the fire elf or the holy flame is the king of flames in the world, and getting one of them may hopefully cure this 9 serenity fire." The middle-aged man in the room, who was originally on the bed, stared at Xiao Yi. "Road. Little friend is really amazing. You can actually possess such a rare thing as a fire elf. If that's the case, then this old man's life will be handed over to your little friend. Let's say goodbye to life and death. Don't worry." A decisive voice came from the house. Xiao Yin slowly approached the side room, and a faint soft light was coming out. Xiao Yin gently pushed open the door of the outer room. The inner room had quite a lot of space. In the center, a large bed was placed in it. A middle-aged man with a dry face was lying on it. Around the bed, several maids were waiting, busy and busy. Hearing the sound of the door, they cast their gazes and hurriedly walked down. Slowly approaching the big bed, Xiao Yin swept his eyes on the bed and found that Yu Yu's face was faintly covered with a large gray-black color, and there was a hint of death on the quiet face. "It's really serious," Xiao Yin said in a low voice, glancing at the middle-aged man's face where he almost stepped into the grave with half of his feet. "Yeah, this kind of fire poison that can devour life force. I am afraid that even a 6-star duty powerhouse would not dare to easily mess with it. Father can survive so many years, and he has reached the limit?" Behind him, Diuru also looked at the person in front of her with distress. Shaking his head, he immediately said cautiously, "Xiao Yin, please do your best to save my father." Yuru's eyes were a little red, and her voice seemed to be much hoarse. "Don't worry, it's not a big problem. I'm going to start. Be careful not to let anyone disturb me." Xiao Yin also agreed, and then said to Yueru, "The state in front of me can only be eliminated by wrapping the strange fire in Yueyu's body with soul power, so it needs a quiet place that will not be disturbed by others. Is the end of the loss." On the side, Yueru nodded, slightly moved. She knew very well that a large part of the reason Xiao Yin would help her was because of the president of the Alchemist Association. A pair of bright eyes stared at the tall, indifferent young man beside him. "I don't have any other way, so I can only follow the method you said, Senior. Use the flame power of the fire spirit to enter the body, and then slowly expel the fire poison." Xiao Yin looked carefully and shook his head. He shook his head calmly. "In that case, the danger should be great, right?" Hearing this, Yueru whispered slightly hesitantly, "Less than 50% certainty." In the quiet house, Yuru seemed to be talking in a low voice, occasionally turning her eyes to the two people beside the bed, and as time passed, watching the sweat dripping down her father's face and the blue veins on her arms throbbing. Yueru's eyes showed some anxiety. It wasn't that she was afraid that Xiao Yin would poison her father. It was just that this method of eliminating toxins made Yueru feel distressed. "My father has suffered too much in taking care of this family, and now he is suffering from such deep pain. How could Yueru not feel distressed?" Xiao Yan's face was still calm. The fingers on Yu Yu's back trembled slightly. The faint milky white flame was constantly enveloped by the power of the soul, and then cautiously entered the latter's body, gradually using the high temperature to expel those in his body. It has invaded the 9 Serenity fire poison attached to the bones. The milky white flame is wrapped around the black bone, although the two seem to be close to each other. But if you look carefully, you can find that there is a very small gap between them. The temperature of the different fire is too terrible. If it comes into direct contact with Yu's bones, even if the opponent is a strong Do-D, he will definitely be seriously injured or even die in an instant. The fiery high temperature penetrated from the flame, and then slowly roasted those jet-black bones. As the milky white flame continued to smoke, wisps of black mist quietly emanated from the bones, and before escaping, a cluster of milky white flames swooped in, wrapped in, and took advantage of the terrifying high temperature to gradually the brand poison mist, which even the strong Do Emperor had to treat with dignity, was smoldered and turned into nothingness. However, when Xiao Yin used the strange fire to burn the black mist, he did not find it. At the moment when the black mist was about to evaporate, some inexplicable black things turned out to be slowly mixed with the milky white flame, and immediately became completely silent. EY used powerful force to get rid of them. As time passed quietly, the jet-black bones wrapped in Xiao Yan's milky white flames gradually returned to their normal colors at a speed visible to the naked eye. At this time, Diyu's whole body was soaked with sweat. The middle-aged face seemed to be decades old, twitching constantly, and the sound of sucking cold air leaked out from the gap between the teeth. Refreshing. It's been a long time since I've been this refreshing. The little brother is really good. Yu felt that the 9 Serenity fire that had been entrenched in her body for a long time without moving actually retreated slowly in front of the milky white flame controlled by Xiao Yan. That feels as if Jiyuo's fear comes from the heart. This fire elf is really powerful. Yu just wanted to take a closer look at Xiao Yan, but she couldn't imagine that the 9 nether fire in her body was squeezed into one place more and more urgently, and her fist died immediately. Squeezed to death, the blue vein swayed on his arm. Like a small snake, Yu's voice was a little hoarse and trembling. Behind him, Xiao Yan's forehead was also covered with sweat. Such a long time of manipulating the strange fire to use it with such a high degree of precision was also a considerable burden on his soul power. He was still with the man in black. During the battle, his soul strength did not return to normal, and he was still struggling. Hearing Yu's trembling question, he nodded slightly. He said softly, "Keep your breath. Now I have gathered the 9 secluded fires at one point, and you're done." Yu heard that she also gritted her teeth and pushed forward. The teeth made a slight noise, and large drops of sweat fell on her forehead. Obviously how painful it is, the pain that burns to the bone. Puff, puff. Yu spat out a few mouthfuls of black blood, and the blood exuded a scorching temperature. As soon as she landed on the ground, Xiao Yi was surrounded by milky white flames. "Huh! It's comfortable." Yu found out from the blood she had just spit out that the 9 Serenity fire entrenched in her body was also expelled from the body at this moment. When the last ray of milky white flame was recovered into his body, Xiao Yan breathed a sigh of relief, wiped the cold sweat on his forehead, and said with a smile, "The basic 9 secluded fires have been eliminated, and they will recover after a few days of training." "Father!" Yueru saw that her father's face had regained some blood, and she did not care about Xiao Yan's existence in this room. She swooped on her father who had just escaped danger, and instantly burst into tears. "Daddy, I said you'll be fine. Do you think it's all right now?" "Whoa,